It's important to select the right business structure so that ultimately you get the right protection for yourself, and you also select a structure that best fits uh, your needs and the overall business industries and stuff like that. So normally we have something called the Canada Revenue Agency, and they are the main regulatory body for administering tax laws, collecting taxes. So if you're a restaurant and you make money and revenue through selling products, selling food, providing good service, customers pay you money, and for all of this money, a portion of the profits goes to the CRA. That's how the federal government has enough money to fund its programs and its initiatives, and they collect taxes through this body called the CRA. So they set all of the business laws, the main sort of income tax laws, and they collect income taxes, and they collect a portion of the profits from businesses. So why does again, just to reiterate, picking the right form of business ownership for you matters because it impacts how you get taxed and what tax returns you need to file. So if you're one type of business like a sole proprietor, maybe you only have to do a personal income tax. Whereas if you're a corporation, maybe you have to file a different tax return like a T2. It matters how profits are distributed. They vary in both complexity and cost to start up. Each form has pros and cons, and it's important to protect yourself against any business liability. So if you're picking one over the other, certainly corporations tend to be more advantageous in providing some sort of protection against business liability. Right, so let's get started. So in Canada, there's three main types of ownership you can choose. It may vary a little bit in other countries, but in Canada we have a sole proprietor, partnership, and a corporation. So let's just delve into what a sole proprietor is. So a sole proprietor means that you and the business are one. There's no separation. So it's designed for small businesses with very few employees, and they pay through contractors, and it's the easiest to start up. So a lot of my friends say, "Oh, I'm doing a little bit of freelance work, and it's maybe like a few $100s, and I do all of the business work." So that would be ideal for a sole proprietor because you're the only one in the business. There's no separation, and it's owned and run by one person. So I put an example of Kim's Convenience because they probably are run by one person, maybe a few family members, and when it comes to income tax, they file as if they were one person. So you have your personal side and also a business side to you. So here's a few pros and cons about sole proprietorships. One, they're really easy to start. They don't require a lot of paperwork, and you have one owner, one decision making control, and they get to claim all of the profits. So if you are a sole proprietor, you do all the work, but you also get all of the profits as well. There's also very little government regulation and restrictions, and one of the good things about a sole proprietor is that you only file one tax return. It's the easiest to start up and easiest to maintain. Very little legal paperwork, and you file one tax return every year. So you have your personal side, let's say, for example, Mr. Leong's personal income tax, and then there's also a separate page for the business side of me. Here are some cons of a sole proprietor. One, with one owner, you tend to do all of the work and you get to assume all of the risk because you're doing this business by yourself. So it can be kind of very risky because you don't have a lot of support and you also do all of the work yourself. It's also hard to finance and raise capital. So if you are a sole proprietor, because a lot of the business assets are tied to you personally, this means that it's very hard to raise capital. One of the biggest cons about a sole proprietor and partnership is this unlimited liability. Unlimited liability means the debts of the business transfer to the owner and your personal assets are at stake. I'm going to explain more about this in the upcoming slides, but unlimited liability means that if somebody sues you or you're responsible for liabilities, those liabilities of the business are going to transfer over to the owner. So that means that your personal assets like your house, your boat, cars are at risk. So if you created a sole proprietor, like Mr. Leong's Cafe, and let's say this sort of business is run as a sole proprietor, and you borrow money to run the business, and that business goes belly up or it goes bankrupt, those debts transfer over to the personal side. So my house, my car are at stake. The business is also terminated when the owner is incapacitated. So if I choose to retire, the business is done, and that is the end of the business. So let's just delve into a little bit more about unlimited liability and limited liability. So let's say I open a business and run it as a sole proprietor. It's called value dollar goods. So value dollar goods, they sort of, rent all this equipment, they borrow a lot of money, they have a lot of liability, or maybe somebody sues value dollar goods for $100,000 and this business is closed. That debt is going to transfer over to Mr. Leong. So I am responsible and my personal assets are at stake. So a lot of people don't like sole proprietors and partnerships for this reason. Whereas if I'm a corporation and this business is going bankrupt, my personal assets are not at stake. Partnerships. Partnerships are also very easy to start. And partnerships have this advantage because you're starting the business with another person and each person is responsible. So again, there's no separation, but it helps having another body to run the business. So maybe you're good at the creative side and somebody else is good at the analytical side. So we're going to partner and start a business. You get to share responsibilities and duties, and you often have something called a partnership agreement. So you're going to outline what each person is responsible for, how much they invest, and what are their daily duties and responsibilities. So here are some pros and cons of a partnership. Pro, you get to share work and responsibilities and financial burden. So it may be hard to start a business with just one person, so you grab a few other investors and you can have these as partners. So maybe I only have a certain amount of money and then we can pool our money and we can get like a better property or better products. Two heads are better than one. You get to pool strengths and work together. So if I'm good at creative side and somebody else is good at the analytical side, we work together and we focus on our strengths, and that can contribute a lot of value to the business. It's also very easy to start, very inexpensive, less paperwork than a corporation. You probably have to do like a little bit of a partnership agreement. So it's very similar to a sole proprietor. It's just that you're getting more people to help with the business, and you need at least 2 people to run a partnership. But here are some of the cons. Yes, you have to share profits and control because you're sharing work and responsibilities. That also means you have to distribute the profits so you don't get to claim all of the profits. One big key con about a partnership is a lot of disagreements and infighting. So maybe you're in a group and you have a lot of differing views about how the business should go. So that may lead to a lot of infighting, and partnerships also can break up too, much like a divorce. It's also hard to find a suitable partner because you're responsible for them as well. So if you are in a partnership and there's 4 people and one person does something not so good and they get sued, that means that you're also responsible for them as well. And you also have this concept of unlimited liability, where the owners are liable and accountable for the debts of the business as well. So much like a partnership over here, if you have more than one person, that means that these people are also responsible as well. Let's look at a corporation. Now, a lot of people like to start corporations because there's a lot of risk and you get to really separate yourselves from the business. So in sole proprietors and partnerships, the business was tied to the individuals. Their actions and the money they made, it was tied together as sort of one being. Whereas a corporation, you're creating a separate entity, so it's separate from the owners. So you can have multiple owners and it's separate from them. So big companies like Google, Amazon, they're going to be separate from their owners. So that means that if this company goes bankrupt, the owners are not negatively affected. It's also good for high-risk companies. So if the company is sued, that means that the personal assets of the owners are separated. The existence does not depend on its owners. So companies like Google, Amazon, and Netflix can run indefinitely, or they can run for as long as they want, because their existence does not depend on the owners. So if the owners are incapacitated, then the existence of the corporation is not affected. So think about a corporation like a separate sort of being, and these shareholders are owning a section of the pie. So let's say we have Alan, Darren, Nathan, and Carl. They decide to run a corporation, and they invest some money, and this is the amount of ownership that they've decided that is based on how much they invest in the company. So Darren has 40, Alan has 20, Nathan has 25, and Carl has 15. So this company is separate from these four individuals. So if somebody sues the company, these four are protected, and we call this limited liability. So that's a big pro. The debts are separate from the owner. It's also easier to raise money, and you also get to take advantage of lower corporate tax rates. So if these four went to a bank and they wanted to get a loan, it's a lot easier as a corporation rather than as a partnership. You get to protect your business name and brand. You also get to get lower tax rates, and there's tax flexibility. So you can do things like, if the company makes a lot of profits, you can distribute the profits, you can pay them salaries, you can give them bonuses. So there's much more flexibility over a partnership or a sole proprietorship. And there's also continuous existence, as I mentioned. Here are some of the cons of setting up a corporation. It's the most expensive and time consuming, there's close government regulation, and there's extensive paperwork and filings. And there could also be a potential conflict between managers and shareholders. And corporations are also double taxed. So the corporation is going to be taxed on the profits, and then these owners are also going to get taxed because they get maybe dividends or salaries from the companies. So before you incorporate, here are some things to consider. What is the end goal of your business? If the end goal is to expand and you want to get multiple franchises, maybe you might want to incorporate. But if you're just sort of doing it as like a side hustle or like a small business, maybe you want to keep it as a sole proprietorship. Does it make sense financially? A corporation means that you also have to keep track of records, you have to file annual reports, you have to file a corporate tax return. So it's going to incur a lot of costs. It's more expensive than sole proprietorship, and it's also expensive to maintain as well. Are you prepared to keep detailed tax records and legal information? So governments keep, they sort of watch over you as a corporation, so you have to be very detail oriented and make sure all of your tax receipts are proper. Is there a lot of anticipated loss or legal risk for your business? If so, you might want to start a corporation because you have that separation from your personal assets. And finally, what's most important to you? Is it important to keep things separate from the business? Simplicity? Do you want to set up shares? So these are things to consider before you incorporate. So if you value keeping things separate from the business and keeping your personal assets separate, then by all means, it might be more advantageous to start a corporation. So I hope this helped. Next topic we're going to be talking about is branding. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson today, and make sure to like and subscribe for more content. So thank you for watching.